Dealing with erupting wisdom teeth was one of the most annoying experiences of my life. It wasn't so bad at first, just some occasional, bearable pains, and anxiously picking at the little protruding parts of my upper wisdom teeth. Eventually, I started feeling like eating was getting harder. The tooth on top was starting to poke through a bit too much, and every time I bit, it just barely tapped onto the gums on the bottom. The wisdom tooth under it still growing, buried beneath the pink tissue. I ignored it. I was busy with work after all, and I was worried about the cost. Surgery for all four would take so much out of my meager salary. My mom would help, of course, but we were running into some rocky financial straits due to the pandemic. One Monday evening, I could feel my teeth sinking into my gums every time I took a bite. The pain was just too much. Left with no choice, I took medical leave for the next day, inwardly cursing my stupid choice not to arrange an appointment and surgery earlier. I woke up next morning to a nightmare. My teeth were unable to even press together, where my bottom wisdom tooth lay under. My gums had swelled up into a ball. Whimpering in horror, I tapped at it with my fingers as I looked at it through the mirror. It felt squishy, like there was some fluid in them. My jaw radiated with agony, and I grabbed at it uselessly, hoping the pain would stop. It didn't. The wait for the doctor couldn't have been longer. I was terrified, wondering what I would do now. The wait time for an extraction would be months. I would have to be eating soft foods, enduring the stabbing pain in my jaw for all that time. The doctor explained that my gums had gotten infected and had swelled up with toxic pus. She would prescribe me antibiotics and write me a referral for a dental appointment, and I would just have to wait and endure. The next few days were terrible. Whenever the painkillers wore off, before I could take another one, my jaw and gums would flare up. It was like someone hammering a chisel into my cheek. I would be left sitting on my chair, ice pack pressed desperately to my cheek, groaning constantly as I tried my best to distract myself. My mouth grew exhausted and sore. I couldn't close my mouth, nor could I open it without more torment. Eating the same bland porridge, potatoes, and eggs every meal only further tanked my mood. Things couldn't get any worse. On Sunday, I was staring into the mirror, as I frequently did, examining the fleshy ball of gums. It seemed to be getting bigger despite all the antibiotics and anti-inflammatory meds I was taking. How long was it going to be like this? I was starting to run out of painkillers at this rate. For a moment, a nightmare scenario of the ball swelling up to the point where my mouth had to be strained open 24/7 flashed across my mind, but I quickly brushed it aside the best I could. That would be absurd. As I continued staring into my open mouth, I thought I saw the swollen gums quiver and move. Frowning, I moved in for a closer look, but nothing seemed to happen. A trick of the light? My own anxiety? Washing my hands to ensure my fingers were clean, I inserted my index finger into my mouth and delicately tapped the pus-filled ball. It moved again, sending a flash of pain through my entire body. I let out a shaky cry of horror. What was it now? Why was it moving like that? I closed my mouth slowly, letting my top wisdom teeth prod at the gums. It pulsed once more. Okay, enough. It's probably just a weird reaction, I said aloud, my voice shivering. I hurried out of the bathroom as fast as I could. That night, I was laying in bed, my head atop the uncomfortable cloth my mom had laid across my pillow, since I was unable to stop drooling while I slept, tossing and turning in irritation. My thoughts were immediately taken away by the strange feeling coming from underneath my gums. It felt like scratching. The sensation of numerous prodding needles sent me running for the bathroom. My vision was blurry as I flicked the light switch and opened my mouth, trying my best to ignore the discomfort it caused. My eyes widened, staring shakily into the mirror, trying to comprehend the dozens of shapes squirming and pushing from inside the gumball. My trembling finger slowly made its way past my teeth onto the back row, centimeters away from the swollen area, but not daring to cross that final gap to prod it. After a minute of hesitation, I withdrew my finger, giving it a wash. I should tell Mom, she would know what to do. Or at least, she could drive me to the hospital. And then, all hell broke loose when I suddenly sneezed. Without time to brace, my jaw suddenly slammed shut, my teeth snapping into each other with an audible clack sound. A sharp explosion of pain shot throughout my face as my teeth bit into the swollen ball of gums. When I opened my mouth to look into the mirror, I could only scream. My swollen gums had just burst open, spraying red blood and green pus all over my mouth. Bloody strings of gum were strewn across my teeth and tongue, some still attached to the epicenter of the damage. From within it erupted hundreds of tiny spiders. The block of black and gray that they formed broke apart as they skittered frantically around my mouth, crawling underneath my tongue and onto the inside of my cheek. The next few minutes went by like a panicked blur. It was like I was overtaken by instinct as I flung the tap open and scooped handfuls of water into my mouth and spat out whatever I could repeatedly. The bleeding hole in my gums protested by way of torment. So brutal, I felt my mouth begin to numb up. But I didn't care. Each sticky blob of blood and pus spat out brought a few dozen spiders along with it, where they scurried quickly down the drain. These were accompanied with my moans and cries of terror, hot tears streaming down my cheeks uncontrollably. I felt several scurry towards my throat, where the water could not reach. My trembling fingers pushed in as far as they could, grabbing the spiders that went there and flinging them into the sink as their legs wildly tapped my fingertips. Finally, the eternal moment of hell was over. My mouth was devoid of the nightmares, as was the sink. My legs turned into jelly and I collapsed to the floor, leaning against the bathroom cabinet and sobbing uncontrollably. That was where my mom found me a few minutes later. The nurses and doctor at the hospital were skeptical of my story, or at least what I was able to tell them in between sobs and anxiety attacks. But they kept a watch on me in the ward for the few days that I stayed there. My mind was kept on edge by the lingering thought that one of them might have escaped down my throat and was running around inside me. Once the bleeding had stopped, and they were confident that there was no infection around the now exposed wisdom tooth, they discharged me. My gums felt raw, and my jaw as sore as it always was. It's been a few days since all that had occurred. I wake up every night in a cold sweat. My dreams are filled with the swarms of spiders crawling into my throat, and my days bring phantom sensations around that area. Last night though, my tongue felt strange lumps as I ran it across my cheeks, gums, and underneath my tongue. Flicking on the bathroom light, I could see strange little tiny bulbs beginning to poke out. I think they're eggs.